All right, we'll be doing another inverses problem. If you have not already written down the steps for finding the inverses from the previous video, you should probably pause the video and write them down now. All right, so again, we were switching x and y, solving for y, and then using our proper notation. So we did number 1. Now we're going to move on to number 3. Number 3 has a radical. Now the inverse of taking a radical or root is raising something to a power. So we'll need that in just a minute. But the first thing, again, just as before, this is our y, but we're going to be switching our x and our y. So this now becomes x, and this is going to be a y, but everything else stays the same. So I have x equals the fifth root of y minus 2, and then this plus 1, you can draw a sort of an imaginary line at the end of the radical. This plus 1 is outside the radical. And that's important as we go forward solving for y. We want to first get the radical by itself. We know from solving radical equations in Unit 4, Part 3. So first thing we want to do is isolate that radical. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. That gives me x minus 1 equals the fifth root of y minus 2. Still trying to get y by itself, but before I can do anything about that minus 2, I have to get rid of the radical. So we should know by now, to get rid of radicals, you have to raise things to that power. And of course I have to do it on both sides. So that cancels out, and I have y minus 2 equals x minus 1 to the fifth power. So now to get the y by itself, I just have y minus 2, so I just want to add 2. Now, when you're doing this, be very careful. Don't try to do extra things that aren't allowed. You cannot take this minus 1 and this positive 2 and combine them and get like x plus 1 to the fifth. That does not work. The minus 1 is inside the parentheses and it's being raised to the fifth power. The 2 is not, it's outside. So you're going to simply write this as y equals from here, and then over here, this is just x minus 1 to the fifth power plus 2. You don't have to do anything more than that in solving for y. We now have y by itself. So finally, all we have to do is just write this in the proper notation. We started with an f of x. So again, this will be f of x with that little negative 1. It looks like an exponent. It's not really, but it looks like it. That just means inverse. And then I already have the right-hand side. And that's my answer. Again, you can do number 4, which has a cube root. So in this case, the cube root is already by itself. So the first thing you're going to do once you switch your x and y is you're going to cube both sides, which will give you an x cubed over here and y plus 1 all over 2 over here. So do that for practice, and of course ask your teacher for help if you need it.